Hey everyone, welcome back to the Talking North podcast. A 21-point loss to Port Adelaide sees us fall outside of the wildcard spots and move to 8-8 for the season. An absolutely flattening loss yesterday. It's definitely a hard one to take, and I feel it was built up this game really for us to show that we are legitimate contenders to, make finals this year. And I think it's not the final nail in the coffin, but it definitely feels like an extremely disappointing loss that I think will be a reality check for us as a club, as a group of players. And it looked like we weren't ready for the occasion against a team that I think we should have beaten. And, with games only getting harder from here, it's hard to see us string enough games together, enough wins together to make the wildcard spots, and I think that's okay, but I think the opportunity was there yesterday to win and, win our first ever game at Adelaide Oval and show the league that we are here to contend in finals. And so disappointing, and it just wasn't a four-quarter performance. We played one good quarter for the game, played decent patches, but really when the game was there to win at Port Adelaide was so much better. Let's start with the first quarter. It was a fairly low-scoring affair early on. I think it was 10-9 our way at quarter time. We were pretty wasteful. We probably should have been ahead by more, but in saying that, our ball movement was extremely slow, and the game was a bit weird early on, and throughout the whole game, the umpires completely dictated it. There was 71 free kicks for the whole game. So a free kick pretty much every 90 seconds. You're just never going to get a free-flowing game from that. And I think we tried to play that to our advantage, playing uncontested footy. And I don't mind when we do that at times, but against Port Adelaide it was too much, and it was just hard to watch at times. Our lack of creativity moving the ball. So first quarter was okay. The second quarter was where the game started to lean towards Port Adelaide's favour, and they really did that through their midfield dominance, which was pretty tough to see. I think it was maybe 7-1 centre clearances in that quarter, or at least in the first half. They were just absolutely killing us, at the contest, in the centre bounce, around the ground. I think a big part of that was the ruck battle. I think Jordan Sweet absolutely got the best of Tristan Xerri. He's a quality ruck, but last year you wouldn't expect Tristan Xerri to be beaten like that, and he was, to be honest. So we went into the halftime break around 17 points down, and the response in the third quarter was very promising. We kicked 5 goals that quarter. 5 of our around. I think we got 7 goals for the game, and we kicked 5 of them in the third. So clearly the third quarter was our best quarter, and I think it was due to our ball movement, and we were actually trying to move the ball through the middle with the likes of Colby McKercher, Luke Parker, Caleb Daniel from the back, really trying to pierce the middle of the ground, and it was very successful, and we were just getting entries inside 50 that were challenging the Port Adelaide defence. So we went into three-quarter time, scores level, and I felt at that point that it was our game to win. Horn Francis got one back at the end of the third to level the scores, but apart from that, we were all over them in the third quarter. And I thought it was such a huge opportunity in this last quarter to, get to 8th spot, really cement ourselves in the wild card for at least a few weeks. And then the last quarter was just terrible, really. I don't know how else to put it. The ball just lived in their half. So many more, inside 50s. They ended up winning by 21 points. It was 3 goals to none in the last, but they probably should have kicked more. There were moments that we could have punished. Zerha had a shot really early that he couldn't score. Colby McKercher had a few really poor moments. He got tackled in the middle of the ground. He kicked the ball straight to them another time. And in general, we just looked like we didn't want it in that last quarter. And I said going into this game that it meant more to us than them, or I thought it would, but Port Adelaide were just so much more determined to get the 4 points in the end, and that was the difference. Because, we just couldn't move the ball, we couldn't do anything from clearance. They were just happy to hold up the game near the end because they knew they had it. And then when we did have opportunities, Spargo, a mark, took it about 40 metres out, tries to do a chip kick to Larky and just goes straight to Burgoyne. And it's just like, from a young player, I can accept that, but it was just some of the things that our experienced players were doing that were just absolutely unacceptable. And I think the pressure got to us, to be honest. I think we weren't ready to play such a high-pressure game, such an important game, and Port Adelaide looked more free, and I think because, they're a bit of a far-fetched to make wild card, well, at least going into that game they were. They might go on a little bit of a run now. I think they just played with a lot more composure, but they were also freer. They were also happy to take on the game, whereas I feel like aside from the third quarter, a 10-minute patch in the third quarter, we were scared. We didn't want it, and that sucks. That's the worst. It's the worst way to lose. I think. I think if we, you could tell if we could tell in the last quarter that we were really, really trying and throwing our absolute hard at it. And I'm not saying they weren't trying. That's never something I'll accuse our players of. But did we try hard enough? Did we want it enough? Were we putting our bodies on the line? I'm not 100% sure, and that's so disappointing to see. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't want to be calling for heads because it's a bit dramatic. But there's definitely some questions that need to be asked of some experienced players, and maybe even some of the tactics. Why did we only try and move the ball quickly in the third? Was it Port Adelaide's ability to hold us up? Or was it intentional that we wanted to play an uncontested, slow game for most of it? Because I think we play so much better when we move the ball quickly. And it was a low-scoring game, of course, and the umpiring didn't help. But, goalless in the last, only one goal in the first, only one goal in the second. Yeah, you're just not going to win a game with that lackluster offence. So it just wasn't a good performance. I think that's kind of the way to put it, and it sucks because it was such an important game, and it was a perfect time to break the Adelaide Oval curse, but it continues. We are 0-15 at the ground, and I really don't understand why. I don't know what about the ground is different to any other ground we play at. Port Adelaide are 15th. It's not like we're playing a top 4 team. And in the past, we've played Port Adelaide and the Crows when they've been both really strong sides. But this was a game where we were above Port Adelaide on the ladder, where we had beaten them earlier in the year. And I think we got in our heads, and that's why we're probably not ready to play finals or make the wild card yet. And that's okay, but it's definitely it definitely sucks. Alright, let's go through the players now. Let's start off with the backline. I thought the backline was alright. We only conceded 10 goals. Obviously Port Adelaide aren't the highest scoring team. They're more a defensive-minded team, but I think our backline held up pretty well. I think Core did decent on Georgiades. He did kick the 3 goals, but I think Georgiades can take games away, and Georgiades actually happened to kick straight, which is rare for him. I think he kicked 3 goals 1. He's often a 1 goal 2, 1 goal 3 kind of player. So I think Core did okay. Georgiades took some great marks, but I think Core did okay. But again, I don't like saying he did okay. We got to have higher standards than that. I thought Comben fought hard all day. I think Whitlock kicked the 2 or 3, but all of his goals were from free kicks that I probably think were a little bit soft. So I think Comben did quite well, and he tried his hardest. You can't discredit him for that. Goda was fine. I think I'm happy he's in the team, but he didn't do anything spectacular. Parker solid again. He's just an immovable force back there. Consistently putting in 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 performances. Cooper Harvey, I thought he was okay. I think he did some good defensive efforts. I think he was actually one of the players that was trying to move the ball through the middle, so I think he was decent. McDonald was okay, came back into the team. He doesn't lose many contests, but he doesn't give us anything going the other way. Colby McKercher, definitely an interesting game. I think at times he looked brilliant. That goal he got in the third was amazing. That was when he was playing more on the forward line, but I've criticised from this game, the main thing is that we weren't taking on the game, and he did take on the game, I have to give him credit, but there was 2 huge moments in the last quarter where he just turned the ball over in the middle, and it was costly, and it did really take it out of us, I think, when he got tackled in the middle of the ground, when he kicked it straight to them, and I think he's such a young player, and I love his intent, I love his running, but he's got a lot to work on, I think, in his ball use and his composure. But that's, Colby's the last person I'd want to, drop. I think, we got to keep with it, and I think he is a player that takes on the game, and I think we need that. Caleb Daniel, after 2 weeks of 40 plus disposals, he didn't get as much for the ball, which was interesting because it was quite an uncontested game, but he just didn't get it as much, and I think he was fine in his defensive work. Nothing spectacular though. Now onto the midfield. An interesting day for the midfielders. I think, LDU and Sheasel got a lot of the ball. So, Sheasel got the 40 touches, LDU got 31. But we actually lost at clearance, which was interesting. And I think Horn Francis and Butters were pretty damaging in the middle. I think Jordan Sweet, as I mentioned, got the better of Tristan Sherry. So it wasn't a great day for the midfielders. I don't think they were great at the contest. Sheasel, got a high volume of the ball, got a goal as well, which was nice, but I do think he was fairly wasteful throughout the day. First half, he was going at 29% by foot, which is just not very good. I think LDU was probably better. I think he was really strong at clearance, and I think his ability to break tackles is such an important part of our game. So he was good. Finn O'Sullivan, he's been a little bit below his standards, which, are so high based on his start of the year, but I think he's been a little bit slow to get back since that, it was the jaw injury and he got a concussion as well. So he's just had a bit of an interrupted season, but I can't, criticise him too much. Now, probably the most sour subject of the game, George Wardlaw. He had some brilliant moments. There was one in the third quarter where he just broke 3 tackles and got the ball inside 50 for that Colby goal. And then in the fourth quarter, he comes off with a hamstring injury. My heart absolutely sunk when I saw that, and it's just awful because he missed the first few games of the season with a hamstring injury he did in pre-season, and since then he's been able to string together, apart from one game where he was out sick, pretty much 13 games straight, which is, I think, his most in a row in his career so far. And we've been managing his minutes. We've been playing him under 70% game time every single game, and we've done everything possible to be able to get the best out of him while also managing him. And he's just done his hamstring again. As of recording, his scans aren't out yet, so not sure how long he'll be out for, but I'd say he'll definitely miss the Collingwood game, which is such a shame because that's such an enormous game. But yeah, just awful to see Georgie go down, and whether or not it's a serious hamstring injury, it is another setback, and it'll be at least 1, probably 2 or more weeks out, depending on how serious. If it is a serious hamstring injury, he's out for the season, which is awful, and I'm not sure who comes in. Maybe Tom Powell. Maybe we try a Luke Urquhart. I'm not 100% sure, but nonetheless, Georgie is going to be missing some footy, which sucks because he's such an important player. But I wish him the best, and I'm sure he'll come back. But it's definitely a setback for us and for himself. The other midfielders, the wingers, Stevens and Blamires were okay. I don't think the game was played, in that kind of the wingers weren't really involved too much. It was more just chipping out the back, and they got a bit of the ball, but I don't think they made great impact. I think Stevens was, I noticed a few times he kind of was trying to duck for free kicks, and I don't think he was as strong at the contest as he could have been, but it's a bit of a nitpick. I don't think the wingers did anything amazing, but not droppable performances. Then you go to Jai Simpkin. He actually had a really quiet game, 13 and a goal. I thought he was okay though. He played not much in the middle. I don't know if he had a centre bounce attendance, but he was a bit on the wing, a bit on the half forward. He was fine, but yeah, one of his quieter games. And then the rucks, I think this is becoming a real issue for us. You look at Tristan Xerri, and he did get fairly beaten by Sweet. So he got more than double the amount of hit-outs. He got more clearances. Xerri got a bit more of the ball around the ground. But yeah, I think undoubtedly Sweet beat him. And Jordan Sweet's been fantastic this year. I think he's one of the top 5 ruckmen in the league. Maybe that's a bit of a push, but he's in the upper echelon of ruckmen this year. He's genuinely a very underrated player. But I think Tristan Xerri was a top 3 ruck last year, and his quality is definitely dropped. I think the centre bounce rule has done that a little bit, but I think we're beyond the point where that is what it is. And I think he is carrying something. And I think it's been mentioned that he's been playing pretty sore this year. So I think his performance has been impacted a lot by a multitude of reasons. So that is a shame. But looking at this second ruck role that we're doing, and I really, really don't understand it. So you look at what's his name? Will Dawson's time on ground, 28%. At that point, I don't understand why we play him, because Will Dawson, we drafted him as a key defender. Down the line, maybe we want him in our back line. And he had some great performances last year in the first. He had a game against the Bulldogs where he kept Sam Darcy goalless for a half, and was really strong and really determined to keep Sam Darcy quiet that day. He did end up kicking a few goals, but Will Dawson was just brilliant that day. I thought it was a coming-of-age performance. Since then, we've barely seen him in the back line. He had a game against Freo that we got absolutely smashed in where he played there. Don't think that really shows his ability. I think that was just a terrible day. So I think it's too hard to criticise him from that. But we've changed his role to a second ruck, which I think's fine. And I know, I get it. With this new rule, 5 on the bench, we want a second ruck. I just don't understand the time on ground. 28% is just nothing. You might as well have an extra running player, someone that can play in multiple positions, not just in the ruck. Because I know Dawson can play in the back line because he's been trained as a backman, and I know he probably can't chop forward yet. But we're playing him 28% just as a ruck, just so Xerri can chop out. What is the point in that? Like, is it because Xerri needs less time in the ruck? Like, last year, Xerri was playing, 90% of game time as a ruck. Like, he's obviously carrying something, so we do need to chop him out. But 28% is just a waste of a player. It means the 4 other changes, there's less changes. That means there's probably more fatigue in other players. And I think that showed maybe in the last quarter. Maybe I'm, digging at something that isn't real, but I just think it's a waste of a position, and it's not Will Dawson's fault at all. I know Clarko's explained what it is. I get it, but I don't think it's working, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. I would rather Goad be a second ruck that chops forward and he plays 50%. That's what I want, and I think we could do the same with Will Dawson. He goes 25% in the ruck, 25% in the back line. But no, we're going him 25% in the ruck, 75% on the bench. He's on the bench for 20 minutes a quarter. He's a spectator at that point. And it's not his fault at all. And I kind of feel bad for him. I think it's halting his development. He might as well be playing in the twos. He might as well be playing 90% of game time in the VFL. I don't know for his development what this is doing. If you're going to do a sacrificial role of 28%, give it to an older guy that's happy to play that. give it to Coleman Jones. If you want a player to play 28%, do not make a kid play that role, because I think that is just so poor for his development. Let me know if you guys agree with that, because I think this is a major issue, and I think we're lacking in running ability at the minute. I think we're too tall, and I think there's so many players in the twos that you could play as that fifth bench. You could go Powell, you could debut Oliver Griffin, you could play Zach Banch. Like, I just think there's so many better options as a fifth bench, and I think Cooper Trembath is good enough to chop in at centre bounce, and I think Jack Darling's good enough to ruck when it's in the forward line. I really don't understand, and it's becoming really frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for Will Dawson as well, but I think it's really frustrating for the fans, and we've heard the explanations, but I still don't think it cuts it, and I think it's holding us back. Anyways, I'll move on from that. I just felt like I really needed to express my opinion on that, because I think it's a major issue in our team right now. Let's move on onto the forward line. It was not a good day for these boys. And I mean, the service wasn't brilliant. I think we're still kicking it way too high, inside 50, not lowering our eyes enough. But some of our forwards were just not on. I think you look at Charlie Spargo. I don't know what was going on with Charlie. My God, he was not very good. And I think he got 2 goals against Essendon last week, 2 really important goals, but man, he was fumbly. And I think, I'm not sure about this guy in the team. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure Charlie Spargo should be in the team. And we brought him in from Melbourne as a bit more of an experienced player. You know, his dad used to play for the club. He was a premiership player. I understand all that. He had a very, very interrupted preseason. I think he missed most of it with a shoulder injury, I believe. It was a pretty long-term injury. He missed most of the preseason. He kind of played a practice game and then played 4 weeks in the VFL before debuting in Gatherant. And I thought he had some good games. I think he's been in the team for too long now. And I think if we saw Zane Dersma get dropped last week, I think it's time for Charlie Spargo to go back to the twos. And I think there are some youngsters in the VFL that can do what Charlie Spargo's doing, but better. And I really want to see Oliver Griffin debut, because he's been brilliant in the VFL. I think he's kicked 9 or 10 goals in about 3 or 4 games, and that's he's obviously playing at a really high level in the VFL, and I think you've got to reward that, and I think you need to punish Charlie Spargo's performances, because I don't think he's been good enough. And you look, this might be reading into it too much, but you look Charlie Spargo around the ground. When he asks for the ball and no one passes to him, he's just screaming and shouting at them, and I do not like that attitude on the ground, and I don't think it's positive. I'm not sure if he's still adapting to the team or if he's always been like this. Any Melbourne fans, let me know if Charlie Spargo was like that, if he was very, would get annoyed at his teammates for not passing to him, but I really, really don't like that attitude. I can accept it from maybe a younger player that grew up being the best player on his team, and they come to the AFL and they're just not because they're a youngster. Spargo's 25 or 26. He's played close to 100 games. I do not like the attitude, and I think it's time for him to go back to the VFL. Just to put it bluntly, the tools, it was just a tough day for them. Trembath tries. His leap at the footy is brilliant, and just some days it doesn't work, and that's okay. I think there's room to improve for Cooper, but you can't discredit his effort. Jack Darling, really solid 2 goals. He's just doing it this year. He's kicking a goal or 2 a game consistently. He's the first ever player in AFL history to kick, I'm pretty sure it's 25 plus goals in all 16 of their seasons. So that is a huge credit to Jack Darling as a consistent pillar at the Eagles and now at North Melbourne, and I think he will go down as one of the best second key forwards in the AFL history, and what he does to be the Robin to, the Batman that was at Josh Kennedy and the Batman that is now Nick Larkey at North Melbourne. I think it's a huge credit to Jack Darling. I think he is a wonderful player, so I just want to give him his flowers. Now on to Nick Larkey. It's becoming extremely concerning, his performances. He is the captain of our club, and I don't think he's standing up enough. I'm not sure if we're playing him the way that we should be. I saw there was a post about his map, or like his where he was on the ground, and I think he's playing too far down the ground. And I'm wondering if he's being told as the captain that he needs to get more involved in the play. We need to keep him in the forward line. We need to keep him inside 50. But the issue is he's not converting at the moment. He kicked 1 goal, 2. Should have been 3 goals. Should have taken more marks inside 50. Should have been more competitive in the air. And I feel like this is something we've been saying about Nick a lot recently. And I understand it was a low-scoring game. But he needs to take his chances. They are not hard set shots that he's taking at the moment. So he had the 1 goal 5 against Essendon, where he was actually marking the ball really, really well. He just couldn't convert, and it was pretty bad, but I mean, at least he was competitive in the air. It just wasn't. I know Ali is an elite defender, but I want Larky to stand up more. I want him to bring his teammates more into the game. I want him to impose himself against his defender. He is the captain of the club. He's 27 years old. He's been a brilliant player for the club. 150th game. He's been absolutely astonishing, but he needs to stand up. He is the captain, and I'm wondering if the pressure of him being captain has gotten to his performance, and I'm curious why, every time we nominate a new captain, they drop in performance. Jai Simpkin, 1-2 best and fairest. Zeeble stepped down as captain. Simpkin comes in as captain and has some poor years. Simpkin stops being captain, and he's actually had one of his better years this year. Same with McDonald. He had some rough years when he was captain, stepped down, had a better year last year. And the same thing's happened to Larky. I don't know, maybe it's just coincidence that this is happening. Did we get the captaincy choice wrong? I don't know. The players vote, and they obviously picked Nick. He's obviously a great leader. He's a very well-respected person at the club. But I just want him to see him impose himself a little bit more as a captain, because I'm not sure we're seeing that at the moment. He can turn it around. He can have a huge game against Collingwood next week where he kicks 6 and we win the game. But I've got to see it. I've heard people say drop him. That is absolutely ridiculous. I do not want to hear that. We just need to expect more from Larky, and I'm sure he knows this. I think he, more than anyone else, understands that he's underperforming at the moment. And this is not a go at Nick Larky at all. I love Nick Larky. He is our captain. He's our captain. He's the guy, okay? We just need to expect more from him. And I think he expects more from himself. And I think he will turn it around. It's just recently, I think he's had maybe 5 games in a row now where he's just kicked 1 goal. And it's just not good enough as our key forward. At 27 years old, maybe he's carrying something. I don't know. I think it's time for Larky to step up, and I think this next month we've got 3 games in a row at Marvel Stadium. He loves playing at Marvel Stadium. Goal kicking should be easier at Marvel Stadium under a roof. We need a big month from our captain, otherwise we're done for the season. Other forwards, Cam Zohar, that's the last one I need to mention. Very odd game. Very, very odd. So during the week, we made the change of Dersma for McDonald. So Dersma made way, McDonald went back, Zohar went forward. I was calling for that decision. Glad it happened. He wasn't good enough. He really wasn't. He was mistiming the ball. He wasn't crashing packs. He looked slow. The one chance he had, he missed. I don't think he was on. And I don't know if it was a one-off, but I think Zohar's had a bit of a weird year. And I think his lack of continuity in terms of positioning would 100% be affecting that. But he was pretty bad. I think we got to be honest. He was not very good. And he is a leader of this club. He is in the leadership group. We need to expect more from him as well. And it was an off day. It was I'm not saying let's just put it down to an off day. It was an off day, and we can't accept that. I think we're too far into this Alistair Clarkson rebuild to accept off days like this. But I think there was a lot of people had an off day. A lot of our players had an off day. But we need to expect more from our leaders. I think our youngsters played well, and I think they tried their heart out. I think our leaders actually let us down, which sucks. But that's, adding fuel to the fire for this Collingwood game. I think this is one of our... I know I said this about the Port game. There was such a huge game. Collingwood is that, but times by 5. We're playing Friday night, Marvel Stadium, prime time, 50,000 people are probably going to be there. This is a huge, huge game. And yes, we're outside of the wild card, and it's looking unlikely we make it. But a win against Collingwood puts us back in. A win against Collingwood gets us above Collingwood and gets us back in the wild card for at least another week. This Collingwood game we have to win. And I'm nervous, but I'm extremely excited to see us have this opportunity in front of the whole nation, in front of the biggest club in the AFL, a team that we don't like, no one else in the AFL likes, to just absolutely grit our teeth and just have a go. Because what else? What else is there for us to lose at this point? We need to attack this game like it is our grand final. And I know I'll probably cop stuff for that North Melbourne play Collingwood on a Friday night, they think it's their grand final because they're such a small team. Yeah, you're right. It is. This is such a huge game for us, and Collingwood fans can go on all they want about, whenever a team plays us, it's their grand final because we're such a big club. You're right. You are right, and I think it is a huge opportunity for us against... It's going to be a mainly Collingwood crowd because it's their home game. We're going to be the underdogs. They are a better team than us, 100%. They've put together some really good footy recently. Nick Dacos is the best player in the AFL, undeniably. They're starting to get it going offensively. Their defence is absolutely fantastic. I hate praising Collingwood. I feel sick doing that, but they're a good team. And yes, they've been a bit off this year. They've lost some close games. They could easily be in the top 6 right now. So they are above us. They're in the wild card. There's a huge opportunity for us to take it to them and show that we actually can do it. But this Port game was not good enough. But hopefully we can right our wrongs. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. Bit of a longer one this time. Went on a few rants, but I feel like after this loss, it was building. After some poor footy, even though we were winning, it was building. Thank you for listening. The Collingwood preview should be out soon. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys soon.